Hi, this is Sheetal from Anamind. I have my colleague Rishi with me on this call. He's director at Anamind. I really hope that everyone is safe wherever you guys are. And today we will be discussing on the strategies to handle planning in the disruptive situation like the one we are facing at the moment because of coronavirus. So let me start by asking Rishi on his viewpoints on how do we plan in such a situation.
Right. Hi, Sheetal. And I also hope that everyone is safe and sound wherever you are. And I also wish a speedy economic and health recovery for the world. Yes, surely this is an unprecedented situation, and like you mentioned, quite a disruptive one at that. And as much as we wish, I feel there is no right or a perfect answer in terms of business planning for this situation. However, there are certain good practices that if we stick to, we can sail through this situation that we would like to discuss in this discussion.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you completely. However, I wanted to share this question, which has been often asked to me ever since this disruption began. So, what can a planning system do in such a situation? Does it really help to use one at this point? We also observe many companies deferring their investments decision during this time.
Honestly, not very surprising question. And I think it's coming from the fact that a lot of people think that the planning system are basically just a forecasting tool. And as we know, it's not that, it's much more. And I think from this belief comes this question that forecasting wouldn't work in this situation, and which is true, but it's very difficult for me to imagine how a company would actually manage this situation without a tool, and also for times to come. And that is something that beats me, and it also reminds me of an analogy of a drunkard person. um, and statistics at the moment resonates with that situation, where a drunkard person actually uses lamppost for a support, and not for illumination of the road. And that's what the statistics needs to be used by the planners in this situation, and not just rely on the statistical forecast.
Hmm. It's an interesting analogy for this situation. And, totally, I think that some investments are more critical in a crisis situation. People need to know how, a system can be utilized, especially in such circumstances, to run the business as much, in a more smoother way that can be possible under such circumstances. So, all right then. I'm really keen to know your views on how should the planners handle this situation.
Sure, and I'm keen as well to share my thoughts. So let us look at what this current situation is at the moment. So as it stands now, it's not business as usual, right? The markets are shut, the transportation is severely restricted, factories are either shut or operating with very skeletal capacities and staff. And only groceries and healthcare products are in demand at the moment, and which means that these are the products which are selling than anything else. And in terms of go to market, it's online channels which are trying to support, apart from the essential services. But they are also operating with a lot of restrictions on the movement of their staff. And above all, the future looks uncertain, right? So we are in a lockdown situation, and we don't know. And there's a lot of speculation on when will this be lifted, and whether it will get extended or not, as it's happening in a lot of countries around the world. So this is a situation that we are in right now. So what can we do as planners in this situation? Well, to start with, as we discussed in one of your questions about the planning systems usage, yes, the statistics won't be very reliable. So first thing we need to do is almost ignore the statistical forecast and adjust them as we do by talking to the salespeople, taking market information, and whatever is available to us to estimate the demand the best of our capabilities. We also need to remove some of the business as usual situations that we may have planned in the past, especially the new product introductions or promotions, which obviously wouldn't happen in this period. So we need to remove them for the time being in our plans. We also need to ensure that if the demand is moving to an online channel from our current high street stores or a distribution channel, then we need to ensure that that happens for the products. Now when I'm talking about this, obviously this in the current situation, it's mostly the FMCG products, the grocery kind of products, or the healthcare products like sanitizers, masks, the other pharma kind of products that are going off the shelf at the moment. As we discussed, the supplies are going to be affected as well, both because of the factory restrictions as well as the transportation restrictions. And as a planners, we also need to ensure that the demand plans are adjusted for the supply constraints. So, for example, the demand for face mask may be very, very high, and we may have adjusted it for the demand perspective. But if we are not able to supply, and which is the situation at the moment, to that kind of demand, then the planners need to adjust it to ensure that the actual plan resonates with the capability to supply. Now, in terms of supply planning, we need to change our definitions at the moment, that because it's not business as usual. So, whether it's your stocking strategies, your safety stocks, MOQs, reorder levels, all need to be reset to a new definition. Maybe things like safety stocks maybe put on hold at the moment. Now, in terms of supply situations itself, is there an capability or opportunity to rebalance the stock? We should look at that as well. And in terms of allocation itself to your markets, maybe this is the time to do your fair share allocation, and because system may not be able to do it basis the normal business as usual situation. So because of the supply constraint, we need to do a fair share allocation. And same thing for procurement. The suppliers may also not be working on the full capacity. There may be certain suppliers who may not be able to support at all. We need to reallocate the percentages we procure from each one of them for to recalibrate it to this situation. Now, this is all about managing demand and supply to respond kind of scenario right now. But once you have done that, the very important critical role that the planets need to uh, perform in this situation is of sensing and monitoring the situation, because it could be changing very dynamically. A lot of things, from political decisions, the economic decisions, the health situation, the spread of the COVID-19, all this could be changing very, very rapidly and in a very different way in different geographies that your company may be operating in. So keeping a pulse of that, and ensuring that that information is flowing back to the management and your own plans in the next cycle is extremely important from response perspective at this point. Sheetal.
So I totally agree with you. And in fact, I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking that why not, we showcase a system of where we can showcase how such situations can be dealt and can be handled and managed in quite easily. And I was thinking that, let's just showcase a Vanguard system uh, of its capability to able to map it such facilities.
Absolutely. That would be awesome if you can actually show this in a live example to all of us. That would be very useful.
Great. Great. So let's move to the system now. Let me show you how we can respond in the situation using a system. So I'm opening Vanguard Predictive Planning platform over here, and I'll directly go to the planning page, and that's where I would be heading. So we have different product categories for which we need to plan, and I'm going to just pick one particular product in this case. So I've just picked up a product which is very high in demand now. So it's sanitizer 250 ml, and we can see clearly that in the last 2 months the sales went up. So the sales went up by quite a high margin, and we really know the reason behind this is the COVID-19. The demand for this particular product had increased tremendously, and that's the reason it can also be seen in the sales. However, we also notice that our forecast is not up to the mark. So, what should we do in such cases? The first thing that which we had also discussed over here is take over from stats and adjust the forecast. And for that, we would have to really collaborate with our sales team, and we need to take their inputs. If there is a finance team who's also involved in the process, then we need to take their inputs as well. We need to ask them to give a right input, and so that we can accordingly take their adjustments and make it part of the forecast. We would also have to look at how month to date sales are happening. So in this case we have also captured that, and that's about 7,340. And we have also basis our daily demand schedule for the last couple of weeks. We have tried to project, and then basis that the demand sensings is letting us know that for the entire month we would be roughly around 45,350, and we can see that in the last month it was around 32,000. So clearly that seems feasible given the current scenario. So we would start by adjusting the forecast. We can simply make an override indicating that the 4 weeks of forecast needs to be incorporated as my final forecast. We can do that, or we can manually adjust the numbers. So I can directly go ahead and adjust the number, and here it's now increased by 35,000 for the month of May, and over here it has become 45,350. But the fundamental thing that we should remember, or I would do as a planner, would be that ask the team who is more in touch with the customer to get their feedback and try to incorporate that, because at this time statistical focus is not going to give us the correct result. So that's where a system like this would help us, in collaboration for the planning of the item. The second thing that we possibly should be looking over is take over and remove the any promotions that we might have planned. So, for example, when I go to this particular item, which is a cold drink, and this item was it's definitely go down in sale, as we know that this is not a very high selling product, considering when we look at the sales of last 2 months, it is not a very high selling product. And the this product can also cause cold and cough in the situation, so people are going to stay away from such kind of product, and that is the reason there is no point in even considering any kind of advertisements or promotion for this item. We can simply go ahead and remove these adjustments that we had made for the advertisement, or we can push these adjustments to the forward period. So we can select a future time period for which we would want to make the change. So that's one thing that I would definitely do as a planner, that I would be pushing these adjustments to a forward period. So we have removed the promotion. The third thing that we were discussing in our demand planning process is remove the NPI adjustment. So
That's also very key thing to note over here, that we do not want to have any sort of uh, new products being introduced in such a critical scenario. So over here, there was a new product which we had initially planned to launch in the month of April, and that's where you can see the projections as well. We have taken a comparable item to generate the forecast for this particular item. In the month of March, there was no sale, but we had initially predicted that we would want to make changes to the forecast for the new products. Uh, but now the situation is such that for next couple of months there would be no new launches, at least because the impact is so high. So we would definitely make an override, make an adjustments, and we would make the changes here, or we can directly go and remove the comparable items for us to be able to project. So that part is really important, that we follow these steps. We can also create certain workflows over here to be able to review the new products, to review any sort of exception during such times. It will take us to the directly to the exception page, and we can directly go to the items which are impacting our our sales, because there's a lot of high deviation in the last month. Apart from that, we would definitely want to make a note of these items, because when we move to a month down the line, 3 months down the line, or say even 1 year down the line, we might not be remembering exactly why did we made changes to such things the way we made. So we would want to make changes. We would want to make notes of such changes. So here I would be making a note that new NPI launch pushed back because of COVID-19, and I'll save this remark so that when I move forward, I would remember why did we make changes the way we made. We can also look at certain online channels, because during such times we definitely know that the online channel might be gaining momentum considering people are locked down. So in such cases, it's really important that we also look at the new channels over here, and we can see in this case the sales look seem to be quite high for this channel, which is Amazon. So people are trying to buy products from the comfort of their home instead of stepping out. So it could happen that the over a period of time that things would move in this direction, that online channel would change the way people buy. So it might become more reliable, or it could be vice versa. So we need to start gauging that information and accordingly adjust the focus for these online channels. Maybe in this case, I want to make an adjustment of 10%. I would want to increase it by 10% for all the forward periods. So I can do that just by simply making three dots, and see how easy it is for us to make any sort of adjustment. I'm also going to make a note of it. Online channel gaining momentum. I'll save this. I'll save this, and then it would also be very relevant in such scenarios that we make a note as to there would be a lot of supply issues, there would be a lot of other issues. So we need to start making a note that in case there are certain supply constraints by which we are not able to supply the product, it could be because of the government not being able to provide the product, government not allowing the products to move because of the restrictive situation. So in this case, I would want to remove the advertisement, and I would also want to remove the high forecast that we have planned in this scenario. We got the information from the sales team that we got the information from our finance team, and also from other departments, that there are certain restrictive policies that the government has introduced, because which we would not be able to supply the product. So we would say in this case, I would want to uh, just quickly change the forecast. I would constrain it down because of the restrictive policy, and make a note, because 3 months down the line I would not remember as to why the forecast or say the sales for this product went down. So it's really important that I make a note of it. uh, move, product product movement restriction, and I'll save it. So we have done this, and now let's see how the situation is turning out to be. And for that, I would definitely want to move towards the supply scenario that we were discussing, that after adjusting all the demand plan, we would be moving towards the supply plan. And for that, we need to update the default stocking strategies and update the safety stock, MOQ, ROL, and look for stock balancing opportunity. So let's see how we can do all this scenario using a system. So in Excel, it's quite challenging, but over here I can simply select the strategy that we would want to follow. Maybe we do not want to follow an economic order quantity ROL, because it's generating orders each month on a monthly basis rather than on a weekly basis, and now we would want to ship the products on a weekly basis rather than on relying on a monthly number. So we would want to change our stocking strategy in such that we would want to now get the product every Monday, and as and when or it could be every Tuesday, and as and when I would be making such changes to the numbers, you would notice that the probability of stocking out is changing as well. So the way we would be pushing these selecting these strategies, it's going to impact my safety stock, my order suggestions, my optimized schedule, everything just by one change. And that's how I would be making use of the system. I can also go into the strategy, change the values, like that the one we discussed, that we would want to now possibly have a cover for just 15 days at max, because we do not know how the situations are changing. So automatically our ordering schedule is changed. We can change our MOQ, our SPQ, all that. We can just save this, we return, and everything would be updated. The second important thing that we would notice, since this location has certain movement restriction, possibly we might get we can look for getting the product either from a nearby location from where we can, there's still an option and opportunity to get the product. In this case, it's showing me that there is some excess amount of about 1377 available, and since there is slight probability of stocking out, and we also know that we had reduced um, this forecast number, so we would want to update this by just topping it up from a location where the amount is available. So we can do that, and we can adjust it. We can also change our supplier. Say we would want to get the product from a different supplier altogether, because these locations would not be able to supply me the products on time. We are now looking for quick transport, or maybe from local supplier, instead of relying on a supplier which is in a different country. So we do not know how the situation would pan out to be, and we got a local supplier. So we can definitely increase the split over here. Say for example, over here we would be getting the product from a local supplier which has a lead time of about 3 days. So we can do that, and we can then also say make changes to other suppliers. Say I do not want to get the product from here at all, so we can adjust it. We can also adjust, say for example, we can adjust it to 60%. And when we do that, automatically my probability of stocking out is changing. I would be automatically, I can ask the system to take this supplier by 100%, or the system is going to do that option work for me automatically. So that's how we can change the supply plan, and adjust these parameters very quickly, and we can definitely make a note of it so that it comes in handy uh, as the time goes on. So we definitely would want to update the supplier allocations, and also we would want to now sense and monitor. This cannot be emphasized in more. Uh, there would be a lot of restrictive situations, so we would want to definitely monitor it. We would want to look at the consumer demand trends. It's really important that we project on a daily basis, at least in such scenarios, so that we can quickly check those numbers. We can say go to the report over here, where we can have a say, I'm just going to readjust it so that I have my family first, and I would be now monitoring it as to just to check how the contribution from each locations are changing. Is it increasing? Is it remaining constant? Or how is it? So we would definitely want to keep an eye on it so that we can take a call accordingly. So that's how we would be sensing and monitoring our demand plan, our supply plan, the consumer trends, and the product preferences. See how they are changing. I hope this was helpful, and it will help the planners and the community to respond better in such situations.
That was excellent, Sheetal. Thank you for that. Now, I really can't imagine how all this would be done by people who are using spreadsheets. And my sympathies to them. But this is going to take a lot of effort to do accomplish this in a spreadsheet environment.
I can't agree more. Okay. So my next question is, what happens next? Say now we are in a situation where things look a bit better than before.
Right. So let's see what that situation may look like. Right. Then if we actually start
Mhm.
recovering from this situation. So say let's assume that it takes a quarter, and after a quarter we see some kind of recovery signs. So what would that scenario look like? I think the markets will open, but the footfalls would still be limited. And the reason I say that is because we don't really expect the whole pandemic to suddenly disappear in 2 to 3 months. So people would still be very cautious, and there would be, I think, government advisories on the movement or public spaces. Which means that the groceries and healthcare products will continue to show high demand, and they would still be in a flying off the shelf kind of situation, but stabilizing a bit. Online channels will take majority of the discretionary purchases demand, which means that yeah, the things that we are not buying today, probably if things start becoming better after a quarter, we would start prioritizing that and start buying. But a lot of that would go to the online channels than to the stores. Well, majority of factories should start buzzing back with activity, but not sure if they could still be in their full capacities, either because of the people availability or even the government restrictions on the number of people that can go back to work. Commercial transport, we expect that to be fully operational, and that's very important for the lifeline of the economy. But the passenger traffic would still be very, very limited, which means that the business movement would probably be restricted as far as professionals are concerned. Now, the planning environment itself. So we saw how it would be in a response situation, and you very wonderfully explained that with the system. And a lot of it would continue in this scenario as well. But one thing which is very important from now onwards is to ensure that the planners clean up the history. And when I say that in the planning language, it basically is that you're normalizing the data. And this is where, again, in your question keeps coming back to me in terms of the usability of the system in this scenario. And I can't just imagine doing this in Excel or any other spreadsheet. The system must have the statistical history, because this will have an impact not only on the current planning scenario, but say a year down the line, 2 years down the line. You would need to have this data on what was your business as usual demand in this period to be able to forecast correctly in those times. You can't really use this 3 months lockdown period and a partial recovery data to be able to plan your sale next year. So this is where the system uh, should be utilized in first place, and that has the capability to ensure that it is recording these events that are happening. um, uh, from all other things remain same, but there is a possibility that companies who had planned for new product introductions may want to um, look at or review its launch in the market, and if that's the case, the planners need to incorporate that information in the plans. And same thing for promotions if required. It could be in the online channel, but it should be incorporated. Now, in terms of supply, honestly, there is same thing continues from the response situation. We need to continue reevaluating our definitions of the stocking strategy and ensure that they align to the situation that prevails in the market. Um, and I would like to, at this point, stress again in terms of the sensing and monitoring. There is a high chance that we expect consumer behaviors to change in this lockdown period, not only in India but worldwide. And it's prime responsibility of the business planners to ensure that these are captured. In fact, your market share would depend on that. I would say that the companies who are quick enough to sense the demand, the changing behavior, the shift in patterns in as we recover from this situation, would emerge as winners. Would you be able to show this as well on the Vanguard system?
Yep, why not? I'm already on my way.
Awesome. Let's see it.
Okay, so we are in Vanguard predictive planning system. And as you can see over here, so few more months have passed. So another quarter has gone by. April, May, June is over. And we can clearly see in this historical data that during the COVID impact, the sales went up. And this was quite an exponential jump in the sale. And then it went down drastically. So now it has looks like it has reached a new normal. We can see that the MTD sales is 2,300. Unlike in the previous scenario, the sales was quite high, but now the sales is looks like it's normalizing. The projections basis our daily demand sensing is coming to be around 9,200. So on the safer side, we would have to adjust the forecast, and before even adjusting the forecast, we can actually make use of the system to clean up the history which was impacted because of our COVID impact, and a lot of different situations that had come into place. There is a method we can ask the system to reject the outliers. So that is one way of cleaning up the historical sales. It finds any outlier, but usually if it usually normalizes after a certain point of time, then usually it's not considered in the outlier. However, in this system, I can make use of the exclusions, where I can exclude certain data points which were abnormally high or which were abnormally low. And when I do that, for example, in this case, my forecast is it has changed. And similarly, I can further exclude few more data points and adjust the forecast. I can clear the inclusions further, and now we can see it is coming to be around 7,000 units, and with a uncertainty of about 2,300. So, and when we look at our numbers over here, it bases our daily demand projection, it's coming to be around 9,200. So we can say that it's going to be around 9,200. And when I do that, I can just simply make the override in the system of 4, and my forecast would be frozen. So that's one way of changing our data. However, I would also would want to look at certain other scenarios where the sales had gone down because of the COVID impact. I was not able to sell certain products, and over here, especially this product category, you can see that across the line items, the sale had gone down, and now it has started normalizing in from June onwards. Over here also, we can exclude certain data points which we believe were impacted quite drastically by the COVID-19 impact. And when I start doing that, you would notice that system has now started picking up the trend again. Instead of giving me a flatline forecast, it has picked up the trend. So looks like this is good to go kind of scenario. So I would save this for my work, and I'm also going to make a note over here that the time periods are now time periods for COVID-19 are excluded for better demand projections. For better demand projection, and I'll save this. So this is really easy to clean up the history where I'm just excluding few points, few data points in the system, and making the changes accordingly. We also had discussed in the first section that in this particular item where there was kind of a shortage in this particular region, which is North America. There was a shortage of sanitizer for the month of April, and we had, if you would remember, we had made a note of it in the system that the that there was a shortage of supply. So now what we can do is we can exclude that time period as well, and we would also want to exclude this quite abnormally high sale event. So we do that, and I'm also going to exclude this data point. So this is how we would go about cleaning up our history and using the system. And I'm sure we would not be able to do that in Excel files. It's really difficult to predict what would be the normal sale if we do not include these data points, and it becomes quite a tremendous job, which I'm able to do it very easily using a system. I can also notice that the advertisement which we had pushed to the month of July, we can now want to start promoting this product in this particular region because there was a shortage in this situation. So we would want to advertise here more so that our sales go up, and that's the reason I have also included the advertisements the way we had done it in the past. So we have now changed the starting date and starting period and told the system to start mapping it to this location so that we get a better forecast. And similarly, we would be able to make any kind of overrides in the system. So let's now look at how we would be planning for the new products which we had initially stopped. We need to now review them and make adjustments to the new product introductions as well. So we would be going back to our the item that we had initially stopped the launch for. So now we can see that the forecast is ready for the forward periods. We can accordingly take a call whether we would want to keep this forecast or make any changes to it. Please note that we had initially selected the comparative product. In case the comparison changes, so we would have to accommodate it accordingly. For me, it's not changing so far, so I'm going to let that be remain same. Another important factor that I would now be highlighting, since we are in this process, we would want to review the daily forecast, and I wanted to show you the daily forecast as well. So I'm just going to pick one product item for which we had started the forecast, and we can clearly see that the system has been able to predict any turns of any event that had happened in the history. We can easily start monitoring our sales. Our sales, if I just zoom in, it's picking up the week impact, the normal week of days effect, the week of, sorry, the month, day of month effect, and any other event. So we can clearly see that it's not just a flat forecast, but the kind of forecasting that the system is doing for me, it's really for very easy for me to rely on such a system, because I'm getting more and more accurate forecast because of the various models that are being used in the backend. So once say we have frozen our forecast, we have adjusted it, we had adjusted our demand plan, we can then look at up our supply side of things, as we were mentioning initially. So once our demand plan is frozen, we would want to change the various parameters of our forecasting. In case we had initially kept a weekly strategy, we would now want to change it to an EOQ ROL kind of strategy, because that's more relevant now during the crisis situation. During the crisis situation, the periodic weekly fills were more required, but now it's the monthly strategy that we are going to adopt for. So we would want to review that. We would want to make any changes to the requirement that's been generated from the system. We would want to do that. We can do that by, say, telling the system that instead of procuring so much units, let's procure only 10,000. So that gets accommodated in the system. Also, our supplier side, it could happen now that our suppliers might have changed. So how do we now accommodate that? So this is on top of, say, reviewing the safety stock, reviewing the uh, our MOQ, ROL, and all other things. So once we do that, we would also want to now change our suppliers, in case we have now changed our strategy as a company, that we are now more focused toward local supplier than the imports from other countries, because this situation can impact and have very drastic impact on the company. So we would want to now change our suppliers. We can change the splits over here. We would want to now have this supplier being 30% dependent. So now look at the other suppliers for various different regions, and we can look at are there any excess stock available from other local suppliers or any other supplier. Then we can modify it accordingly. We can modify the splits. We can now safely say that this particular supplier is going to supply me only 30%. We do not want to be over dependent on the supplier. Things like that are really important to make the adjustment. It's very quick and easy to make such adjustments over here, and let the system start calculating, start generating the demand, start generating the requirement for each and every locations the way we had assigned. We can assign them individually and manually one at a time, or we can create certain workflows and exceptions in the system and certain rules in the system that it gets allocated automatically through just one integration. So that's how powerful system would help the planners make decision in such circumstances. We would not be wrong in overemphasizing the situations where we need to start monitoring things on a regular basis, the things like our things such as our uh, restrictive situations, our consumer demand trends, our product preferences. We should be giving equal emphasis to this part of the segment as well. We would now want to monitor which are the products which are gaining momentum after, say, the sales have come down. So let's look at that part as well again. So we have certain inbuilt reports and dashboards which I would want to look at, and over here we have segmented these items basis the various categories that we have, various regions that we have, and we can easily check over here that uh, initially, say, my EMEA location was contributing to 34% of the sale, but now it's EMEA is around 28%, and similarly it's 29%. So the percentage contribution from each of the industries are, or each of the locations are changing, each of the industry segments are changing. We would want to capture these trends to be able to respond and mm, respond appropriately, and also align our supplies in that direction. So that would be, I would say, completion of how we can see plan once the impact of such situation, or the impact of say COVID-19 has reduced and things have started to become normal. Back to you, Rishi.
So the things have started looking better, and we have seen some changes in the business. What name have you given to the period after this?
So, well, I call it a new normal, and especially because I think a lot of things would change if we have such a long period of business slowdown. So it would be a normal but a new world is what I expect. Um, what this would look like, which means that the new products enter the market again. Uh, so we would have companies coming in, responding to the situation, to the demand of the consumers that have pent up during this time. uh, Supplies by this time should be restored to normal, and by the way, I'm looking at least 2 quarters later, so 6 months kind of a period in minimum. These are just the assumptions. It could be longer, it could be shorter, but we don't know that. It's possible, and there's a highly possible scenario that the healthcare industry may see a permanent shift in demand levels. And the reason I say that is because during such a long period of this pandemic, um, I believe that there would be a shift in the consumer habits as far as personal hygiene is concerned. So things like sanitizers, the other healthcare products would really be prominent on the monthly uh, buying basket. So we will probably see a permanent shift in those demand levels. And who knows, there could be a few other things from FMCG basket as well, as we keep going and buying same things in the next few months. There could be a permanent shift in our loyalties. Online, as we are seeing, would become a major channel for most companies, because this is a great time for finally cut over for online channel, and a lot of us would have moved to the online procurement for our own personal needs as well. Business consolidations will perhaps take place during this time, and we'll also see innovations. Now, what I mean by that is there would be a hit on a lot of companies, especially the SME sector. There may be certain shutdowns, unfortunate ones, and there could be acquisitions. So, which would again, from the planning perspective, change few things in terms of the demand and even the supply situations. Um, and there may be some new products coming in, tackling the whole new world that we would be coming in. Now, what those are, I don't know. I'm not Bill Gates, but we should be excited to see some innovation from that new world. In terms of the planning in this new normal, as we like to call it, is that we need to continue use system capabilities to normalize the history and keep adjusting forecast, but probably we may have to adjust it lesser and lesser as we enter this new normal scenario, because most patterns would start getting formulated from here onwards. And But it would require a keen eye. Like I mentioned, look for shifts in demand levels, continue tracking the online, and of course reactivate any NPIs, your new innovative products, and even the expansion plans that could be coming out of the acquisitions. In terms of supply planning, this may be a time where you go back and reset to the permanent levels of your definitions. Um, so what I mean by that is that from the immediate response situation, till the recovery, you may have changed your definition of your reorder levels or your safety stocks or your stocking strategy per se itself. But by this time, you would be putting it back to either the earlier definitions or your new permanent definition, which would probably not change as often. Right. So this is an important activity that again planners have to be careful about and not let it slip out of their to-do scenario. And similar thing for procurement as well, that if your suppliers have changed, if their capacity to supply has changed, or you have added new suppliers, whatever the situation is, it's important that you reset your system capabilities and definitions for your procurement as well. Sensing and monitoring cannot be emphasized less in this new normal. This is something that I think the whole behavior of the planning would have changed right from now, response situation to the new normal. Planners would now become more, sensing capable, and that's a word that we would hear a lot about in the past, but I think COVID would have changed our function to a demand sensing in true way. And again, how would you do it? I just can't imagine doing that within a spreadsheet. So you would have to use a system that is capable of demand sensing capabilities, especially from an online perspective. There would be a more frequent change in the behavior. You would be doing more frequent forecasts. So we are talking about kind of a daily, weekly capability to respond to a situation. And on by now, I'm actually very keen to see that in action in Vanguard systems. I'm not even asking you whether we can. I'm sure you're already itching to get in action.
Okay, sounds good. Let me show you the new normal.
Awesome.
So here it is again, Vanguard system. So now we have completed 2 quarters after Corona outbreak, and now we would want to monitor how it's looking like in this particular scenario that we have seen that the sales were pretty high during the COVID impacted months, but then as and when the normalization hit in, or say the new normal, we see that the sales have gone back to the normal, and it is now hovering around 7,000 units. Earlier it was around 4,000, 5,000. So the important thing that I would start from is sense the changes in how the sales have taken shape now. In this kind of scenario, the sales have gone down. It had become normal, but this is the new normal. It's no longer in the range of 3,000, 4,000. The habits of people, the buying habit of people have changed over a period of time now. People are more hygiene conscious. Then that's the reason that they have started buying these products more compared to the situation prior to Corona outbreak. And system is also predicting really high level over here. There are, say, other instances where we had seen the where we had seen the sale had gone down, especially like in these time periods for this particular product, and now we have seen that it is now resumed to the normal. But what we can also over here do is, as we had done in the past as well, that exclude these data points which are impacting our sales from our history. We would want to exclude these data points, and as and when we do that, our forecast would change. And now you can see clearly that the system has automatically picked up the pattern, which it was not able to, because there were certain time periods which was in bad shape. So now the system has picked up the trend. It's now predicting really well. And as we had talked about in the previous discussion, that there is an option to reject the situation as outliers, so we can do that. We can usually make changes to history as well. For example, if we have this particular time period, so we can tell the system that had this situation not taken place, then what would have been the amount. Say, for example, it was around 880 units. instead of very low normal. So we can change in the back end, we can change the history and tell the system what that new normal could have been. Really, we can do that for each of these items over here. We can exclude them. So there are various different ways in which we can monitor and make the changes to our historical sales for our future reference. And it would be uh, very important to emphasize that we should keep on recording the changes that we are making, which would be a very good value add when we move, say, 2 years down the line or 4 years down the line. It would be really helpful to look at these items. So it's really important in such situation to look for the changing trends, and that's where I would also want to now focus more upon that. As and when the situations have passed, we can start looking at how the trends and how the information is shifting and goes on. So we should be keeping an eye on how it's shifting. So now we can clearly see, at least in the FMCG sector, it's the North America region which is topping the chart, unlike the EMEA location, which was the case earlier. So these are the trends which we should start looking at, which we should start monitoring very closely to be able to predict accurately and give value add to the forecast. And nonetheless, to mention that it's really important that we also take the inputs from our sales team. We take their inputs. So in this case, our sales team had mentioned that, or they had frozen a forecast of about 3,957, and then there was a budget of 7,159. It's really important to take the feedback from other team members so that we are up to date on the market situation. That's where this collaboration grid is going to help me out. I can just quickly mention it as sales that we are expecting the sales number in this case and maybe the budget number for this time period. So we should be making such changes so that our forecast gets adjusted accordingly and it's no longer just the plain output from the system. That's the key point of using any of the system. Other points that we would want to focus is definitely, when we would be looking at the shifts in the demand level, we would also want to monitor how our online channels uh, are behaving. If there, there has to be a frequent sensing capability, and that, as we had also shown in the previous section, we would want to do that through the daily demand forecast, and that would ensure that we have the correct data in front of us. We are sensing the demand more accurately for, especially for such channels, and then making the adjustments according in the system. We would also want to review the new introductions. We have now plans for the expansions to other geographies. So that's where we have now a different location which has come up where we are now planning. And this location is going to behave quite similar to the APAC region. So we have selected APAC as one of the segment from where we would be comparing to generate the initial baseline forecast. And definitely the marketing team can come here and collaborate. This is where the team collaboration as well as the quite close monitoring of the situation would help us review which are those locations where we should be expanding, which are those products where we should be focusing, or where we should be emphasizing more on during the course of time. And as we had done quite a lot of changing around in the system of the supplier information of the various strategies, it would be it also makes sense for us to now review those strategies, because now business has become as usual, so we would want to stick to a particular strategy for our forward period of time. So this is where these strategies would come into picture. I would be making changes to these strategies. Say I've selected a different strategy altogether, or maybe a fill rate of 99% is what I would want to have my strategy as. and you would notice my optimized schedule is changing. I would definitely like to have this capability in the system. I can, if required, I can change the norms. I would want to keep a safety stock of 30 days. So automatically everything gets changed accordingly, and I would say that I can I can also now would want to monitor and make changes to our suppliers, and that's where these information would come in handy. So, is my local supplier maintaining the correct supplies? Is he able to supply more accurately? Is it being supplied on time? Basis that and basis their contribution, I would want to have the split over here as well. As you had also seen in the previous segments, we can quickly and easily make changes to the splits. Uh, this can be done again manually, or it can be done through the Excel upload directly in the system in bulk. So that way we save a lot of time, and also we save a lot of accuracy by using such a approach. We can, as we have mentioned, we would be making changes to our economic order quantity, our strategies, our different supply planning parameters. We would also, this part we have also covered, which is resetting supply allocation to forecast where normal. We would now review the procurement and reset supplier allocation. So this part is also covered, and we would definitely be keeping a very close watch on any changing restrictive situation. Is the virus coming up again, or are there any other things that are going to impact our product lines? We would want to really monitor and put more emphasis to those situations. That's where the planner would be able to play a key role in not only sensing it but also highlighting it within the company to be able to take correct actions. So that would be it from my end. I can also now would want to monitor and make changes to our suppliers, and that's where these information would come in handy. So, is my local supplier maintaining the correct supplies? Is he able to supply more accurately? Is it being supplied on time? Basis that and basis their contribution, I would want to have the split over here as well. As you had also seen in the previous segments, we can quickly and easily make changes to the splits. Uh, this can be done again manually, or it can be done through the Excel upload directly in the system in bulk. So that way we save a lot of time, and also we save a lot of accuracy by using such a approach. We can, as we have mentioned, we would be making changes to our economic order quantity, our strategies, our different supply planning parameters. We would also, this part we have also covered, which is resetting supply allocation to forecast where normal. We would now review the procurement and reset supplier allocation. So this part is also covered, and we would definitely be keeping a very close watch on any changing restrictive situation. Is the virus coming up again, or are there any other things that are going to impact our product lines? We would want to really monitor and put more emphasis to those situations. That's where the planner would be able to play a key role in not only sensing it but also highlighting it within the company to be able to take correct actions. So that would be it from my end. I must say, I'm quite relieved of my anxiety on how to go about planning in such a situation. While I understand there will be a lot of specific scenarios for every planner and company, I'm sure this will help serve it as a high level guideline to all my planner friends. I would also like to quickly introduce to what other things that we do in Anamind. So we are all about business planning. We have planning solutions, we have planning services and planning education. We have different courses under planning education. We have different training programs which we do both online as well as offline. Under planning services, we create certain reports, dashboards, and also we help companies who outsource their work to us within the planning domain again. And for planning solutions, so we have different systems in place, and Vanguard is what we had shown over here. Vanguard is a quite comprehensive system which can do not only demand planning, supply planning, or MRP. It can also do capacity planning as well as financial planning, which is quite useful as it's a completely integrated business planning solution. About Vanguard, it is a company which was founded in 1995. They are based out of US, and they are specialists in business forecasting and predictive planning system. They have done more than 20 years of R&D, uh, and that's the reason the kind of accuracy that you expect from such a system is quite unique in itself. They have about 3,400 customers spread out across 68 countries, and I'm sure many more are adding at the moment. They have customers range in size from 50 million to 50 billion, and their solutions have been implemented across the industry segment. So there's no industry specialty. They have uh, their systems have been used in the pharma. They have been used in the FMCG, in fashion apparel. It's also been used in automotive sector and lot of other industries as well. So that's how comprehensive the system is. Um, Thank you for being patient and listening to the entire conversation so far. Please get in touch. Do write to us for your queries. You can write us at hello@anamind.com. We would be happy to answer your queries related to this situation or any other situation which is in planning domain. We would be happy to help you out and provide you solutions on that. Thank you so much.